Hi, this is Dan at Sonicstate, and today I am looking at output, analog, brass and wind. Output analog brass and wind is a virtual instrument that offers realistic orchestral samples as well as sounds taken from classic synthesizers. You can then combine these sound sources, add a number of effects, modulation or arpeggios, all inside Native Instruments' contact player. If you are familiar with Output's analog strings instrument, then you can expect the same approach to the brass and wind instrument here. In fact, Output has been releasing a number of innovative plugins since 2013, covering different aspects of music production, including bass, vocals, rhythmic creation, reverse instruments, and hybrid orchestral libraries, among others, but always trying a unique approach when designing the plugins and offering some creative inspiration to the music producer. I am using the free contact player from Native Instruments to run the library inside Ableton Live 9 on a Windows 10 machine using an i7 processor. I am running 9 instances of the plugin and the CPU is about 30%. Task Manager is reporting about 6 GB of RAM use for Ableton and the analog plugins, so you do need a fair amount of spare RAM in your machine. These are some of the main features of this instrument. A variety of sounds, 500 presets, dual-layer sound engine, global effects and layer effects, sound editor with a pitch and an amp ADSR, 4 macro sliders, an arpeggiator and parameter modulation. Let's have a quick listen to some of the presets to give you an idea of the wide range of sounds this instrument can provide, and then I will get into the interface in some detail. You can navigate the factory presets using the menu at the top, and if you click on the current preset name, you can then access the whole preset list. Here you can save your favorites and use the tags to fine-tune your search. You can access the 4 macro sliders from this page, so you can quickly manipulate the sound as you browse through the presets. Going back to the main tab, here you can see those same 4 macro sliders, which are great for performance or quick sound manipulation. You can enter edit mode and assign a label that describes the slider's function using the drop-down menu. Then at the bottom of the page, you can edit the offset value and the range for each of the assigned parameters. You can click at the top of the module to check which parameter it is and where to find it on the interface. Below the sliders, we have the controls for the two sound layers. Each layer of sound has controls for mute, volume, pitch, reverse, and loop points. On top of this, you can change the sample source in the source menu. Here you can navigate the available samples, which are organized under the categories of orchestral, synths, and creative. And then one-shot, pad, and tape. For the orchestral samples, there is also the option of switching between close and far microphone placement. The Edit tab includes amplitude and pitch ADSR envelopes, plus an extra curve control in the case of the amplitude envelope, and an amount control for the pitch envelope. Then we have controls for flutter, stereo placement, spread, pan, monophonic, and legato mode. There is also an advanced edit menu where you can set the key range, swap the stereo perspective for orchestral sources only, and adjust performance settings like glide time and velocity sensitivity, among others. Moving on to the Effects tab, the plugin includes independent effects for each layer, as well as global effects that apply to both layers. The layer effects include a filter with its own envelope and 11 filter types, a 3-band EQ, 3 types of distortion, a compressor, a delay, and a room-modeled reverb. The global effects are similar but not quite the same. There is a low-pass and a high-pass filter, the same 3-band EQ, a distortion module that emulates classic British guitar amps, compressor and limiter, phase and chorus effects, 2 independent delays, and a convolution reverb with a long list of presets to choose from. Next in line, we have the Rhythm tab. Each layer has 2 rhythm modules, so there are many possibilities to add movement to the sounds. I am going to mute one layer to show the different modulation options more clearly. There are 8 modulation destinations that include volume, pan, filter cutoff, and resonance, as well as 4 parameters related to distortion. You can set the modulation rate at the top, and then set the amount for each parameter. There are 2 modulation sources you can choose from, an LFO and a step sequencer. The LFO offers a variety of wave shapes, and the step sequencer offers many patterns to choose from. plus a number of useful controls to manipulate the sequence. On top of that, there's a flux mode, which is basically an 8-step sequencer for the modulation rate, so that you can apply different modulation rates at different times. This applies to both layers of sound. Finally, you can save your own rhythm values or load a factory preset from the available list. Finally, we get to the Arpeggio tab. This is easier to use than the Rhythm tab, but still gives quite a few options. So I first choose the rate and set the octave parameter so that the Arpeggio changes the pitch of the notes. Then I can go to the Arpeggio type menu and play around with it. You also have the option of setting a pedal note for every other note played. And finally, we have a table to control the velocity accent for each step. There are quite a few patterns available. And once we have chosen one, we can also adjust the duration and the swing parameters. Or I can bypass the table completely by clicking on the fixed velocity option. So, having gone through most of the features of this plugin, I see it as a good tool for the modern producer that can generate a big variety of brass and wind sounds by combining real instruments with synths and sound-designed features. It has well-chosen and varied samples, a clever design, and it's easy to navigate given the complexity of some of the editing tools. Generally, it has a clear interface, although I did struggle to see the macro edit mode button, for example. I think Output have succeeded in creating an inspiring instrument that holds its place among the rest of their catalog and provides very usable and unique sounds right from the outset. Anything from cinematic to modern dance music production and experimental electronica. This is not a traditional or comprehensive orchestral plugin, but rather a novel approach that adds a twist and expands the familiar orchestral sounds. In terms of specs, it is available in the usual formats, and you need about 15 GB of disk space. You also need to install a few applications before you can use the plugin, including the Output Hub, the full version or the free version of Native Instruments Contact plugin, and don't forget to update it even if it's a new install. And finally, you also need the Native Access software from Native Instruments. Before I finish, just to mention that I tried this plugin with Ableton Live 10, but Contact Player crashed as soon as the library was loaded. So I guess you'll have to wait for a Contact or an Ableton 10 update. That's all from me, and thanks for watching.